Hi, I'm Terina Lee. Welcome to MGig. In this episode, I speak to Matt Ryan, creator of Monster Time Zines, about the current live music situation. Also have Suzi QP Dhol from St Kilda Live Music joining me in the studio. We'll have a chat about her Driving Gigs project. And later on, I speak to Karl Bianco, content manager for Southern FM, about how our community radios are being affected during this lockdown. First up, though, I have Jack Howard from Hunters and Collectors and Epic Brass on the line. Hey, Jack, how you going?
Good. Hi, Terina. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, considering the circumstances.
Yes, interesting circumstances, that's for sure.
It's strange times.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I wanted to ask what you were up to prior to lockdown. You have obviously very involved in music and the local music scene here for many years. What were you up to beforehand, and what did you have planned as well?
Well, look, the really big one was that we were on tour with Hunters and Collectors. We were, for the first time in 5 years, mind you.
Yeah.
So we're all having a ball, and we've done about 2 months' worth of the Red Hot Summer Tour. So ourselves, James Rain, the Living End Angels, and a few more bands. So it was a brilliant tour, big crowds. And we got to about the end of March, I guess, like everybody, and then it just kind of got shut down completely. And so we had to cancel 9 of the last shows, and hopefully we've postponed. Well, hopefully we've rescheduled 3 to October. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can actually do those when we get to October. But look, it was a kind of a massive hit in all ways. Number one, just we were having such a great time playing, and crowds were loving it. We were loving it, and it was all rolling along really, really well. So just the good times came to an end. But it was a very big financial hit for us.
Yeah.
And for everybody involved in the tour, because obviously insurance was not covering any of this. So cancellations are cancellations. No one's somehow, getting any money, on the side through insurance or anything. So all the, if you think about it, from security to caterers to merch people to the crew to truck drivers, it's massive. And we were just, one small example of that.
Yeah.
So that I guess that was the really big one. But I have to say, as soon as that tour was finished, I had kind of shows booked all the way through.
Yeah, because you have Epic Brass as well.
Well, I got Epic Brass, and I've also got this Baccarat show. So I had about 4 or 5 Baccarat shows organised, and then some Epic Brass shows, plus my regular Long Lost Brothers, which is my original band. We were starting to play May the 10th, which has just passed. And then, look, I suppose the I wouldn't say the upside for me, but I'm putting a new CD out in September, and also a book. I've written my musical memoirs.
Oh.
So I'm putting those both out in September. So in a lot of ways, this has kind of given me a little bit of headspace and time to actually plan properly for all of that.
Yeah, found a positive out of the lockdown.
I'm kind of spending the time. I've made a couple of videos. I'm getting all of my, online presence. The product, as they say, getting myself as the product ready for the launch in September.
Yeah.
And look, the third part of all of that is that I teach music at Wesley. So we've been doing the whole remote teaching thing for the past month or for all of this term. So that's been interesting times as well. It works up to a point, but it's obviously not a perfect world. So yes, there was a lot going on.
It sounds like you've been doing a lot in lockdown as well in regards to music. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, look, I kind of just, I just was putting some stuff. I started on I toured with Midnight Oil a couple of years ago in 2017. And a lot of downtime going around the world. And I started doing these just kind of bits of music. I'd come up with something in GarageBand on my laptop, and then I'd put a bunch of photos to it and chuck it up on Facebook. And it was kind of fun. And it was just a bit of a different way to, present the endless, stream of Facebook scrolling. And so I've been doing a little bit of that. I'm just kind of coming up with really quick tunes and making some videos for them. And, doing a bit of a Friday flugel thing, a bit of a solo thing on Instagram every Friday, So, just little things, but just kind of keeping things moving along and having a lot of fun, to be honest. Having a lot of fun myself and teaching myself some video making skills. And I've kept myself busy. I haven't done too the streaming thing.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question to you about, with music, live music, especially being heavily online at the moment, sort of, what's your view on these platforms? There's a whole bunch of new ones popping up as well.
Yeah, there are all sorts of them. I suppose I'm being a little bit, I'm being a little bit careful about it, because I think everybody's putting up everything and anything at the moment, and there's some really great stuff, but there's some also just really pretty naff stuff, I think, as well out there.
Yeah.
So I just reckon I'm holding my, I guess I'm keeping my powder dry a little bit with that one. We might be doing that Isolate Instagram festival.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
My Nicky Del Rey, who's my kind of long-time guitar pal, who's in my original band at an Epic Brass. We might be doing one of those. I mean, the other thing I'd started to do before all of this hit was we were having backyard concerts in our backyard.
Yeah, I did hear about one of those actually. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we did one and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It wasn't streamed; it was just a gig.
Yeah.
And I had this amazing lineup of Melbourne artists who were going to be doing Friday, Saturday for the next few months. So I was really looking forward to that, and it was a nice little gig for a solo artist. I mean, they would have made $300, $400, $500 for themselves, which is a good gig, anytime.
Yeah.
So I might actually, if things start relaxing, I might actually get those going again. But that was going to be a nice little way around this as well. But yeah, look, the streaming, I've watched quite a lot of it, the Isolated and Delivered Live, and there's a company called Stage It that quite a few people have been doing some stuff through.
Yep.
As well, so there's a lot of it out and about, and I guess the initial thing with all of that was that people were just wanting to keep doing stuff. But as the weeks have gone on, everyone's going, okay, well, how can we actually make a buck out of this?
Yeah.
So people have been kind of, trying to get people to subscribe it or, buy their Bandcamp merch or donate.
And with these platforms, it's going to be interesting how it's going to look after lockdown. Do you think, with everything being so digital at the moment, do you think that'll have a massive effect on how, live music obviously was prior to lockdown and what it's going to look like in the future?
Well, I guess the thing about the streaming stuff is that it offers an opportunity if you've got the fan base and if you've kind of got the interest to actually be doing these things to people overseas, as well as right around the country, as opposed to your immediate St Kilda local crowd. So there's there's some certainly stuff to think about amidst it all. I'd kind of like to be able to do it properly when I do it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
Just have it sound good and have it look good, and do it in the right way. But yeah, look, I think they'll this will be an additional thing to your traditional live gig. It'll either be actually streaming the live gig or doing separate streaming things as well. I think will be quite a big component of this going forward.
Yeah, hopefully a positive one, I'm hoping.
Yes, hopefully a positive one.
Yeah. And how do you see sort of live music starting back up? Like there's, obviously a lot of venues are struggling at the moment. We're probably going to be, limited for the amount of venues that musicians are going to be able to play in.
Yes.
How do you see, once lockdown's sort of lifted and things are starting to feel somewhat normal, how do you see that's sort of the future of live music?
I think eventually it'll bounce back, as it always has been, because people just love it so much. I mean, live music's the history of the world. It's not just the history of the local Melbourne scene. People have been loving live music since someone was banging on a rock. So I think it'll kind of bounce back. Look, it'll take time. I think a lot of people. I mean, I know our kind of, I suppose, circle of St Kilda music lovers who go to every and any gig around town, around the suburb, to Dog's Bar, to Mimo, to Surabaya Johnny's, to Misery Guts, to all of these gigs. Everyone just goes to everything, around the hood. And I think a lot of people are just going to be very careful about getting out too soon.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit of hesitation, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't think suddenly the doors are going to be flung open and everyone's going to zoom back in. I think eventually people will. Their memories of all this will fade and they'll get back in. But look, it'll be slowly but surely. I mean, I've got to say that we're hoping to do the Red Hot Summer shows in October, which are big outdoor shows to 5,000 to 10,000 people. So we're just hoping we can do those. We're hoping we're in a position where we can get back up by then. Nobody in the band is 100% convinced that we're going to be able to do that. I certainly hope we can.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, it's going to be slow going. It'll be slow going. I think everyone's on board with following the Victorian government's directives as well, and the federal government's directives. I think that both governments have actually, much as I hate the Liberals, they've handled this pretty well, and certainly the Victorian government's handled it very well. So it's just slowly but surely, I guess.
I've got Suzi Q here from St Kilda Live Music Committee. How are you going today?
Hey, Terina. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us.
It's nice to see someone.
I know. It's nice to interact with people, isn't it?
Exactly.
I wanted to start from the beginning, obviously. What impact has this lockdown had on the music industry? Who's affected?
Everybody. Absolutely everybody. I work with venues, sound engineers, artists. The calibre can be, the small new local band right up to headline major international acts. Everyone affected. We have no industry at the moment. So there's been a lot of, ideas that are floating around, which we can get to. But, yeah, it's
pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's affected. And how are people surviving in the industry at the moment?
I think that the community... I watched this documentary recently about self-isolation. So it focused on astronauts and people like that were forced into self-isolation for long periods of time. And in the first stage, we go through the hysteria we saw with the toilet paper. Yeah. And then the second stage...
Panic.
Yeah, was we accepted it and just wore our jammies and, watched Netflix for a while. And then there's the third stage where we all get a bit niggly and a bit anxious about what the hell we're doing next. So the people that have been affected in our industry have done the best they can by connecting and using the internet and doing their streaming gigs from home and stuff like that. Just the connection, to see a face in real time, not just a recording of a show or something, but to be connected real time, watching has helped.
Yeah, sort of keeps that community alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone sort of, do you have any suggestions for anyone that's struggling?
There's a lot of different ways for musicians to try and cope with this. One of them would be sourcing this narrow casting thing, which I would like to explore more in the future weeks. Mimo in St Kilda have been doing concerts. So they've been having, major artists like Renee Gayer and people like that, and streaming that out. And I want to encourage more venues to be able to do that, because that would at least provide jobs for, a couple of sound engineers. The band will get paid.
Money goes back to the venues.
It's really hard because the music industry's changed so much, and that where do we get our revenue from in the beginning? Because people just download songs for free, and so it kind of comes down to getting paid through merch or the venue paying you. So yeah,
which is what it was like prior to lockdown. That was how artists and venues were making most of their money from performing tours.
Yeah, exactly. So without that, it's the streaming thing is okay, but it still doesn't replace
what we had.
Yeah. The self-isolation and the mental health issues, not only for just the general community, but for musicians, I think is extremely important, because I'm not a musician, but I do present them. And I know that getting on the stage and performing for people every week, it's a big part of who they are. So not being able to do that is like really affecting musician mental health.
Yeah, there's impact financially, but then also mental health-wise.
And the same with, the sound engineers and the venue operators and myself as a booker, So the economic and mental issues are quite large, I think, for our industry.
Yeah. In terms of the digital world, sort of what are some of the benefits that the music industry has had sort of or risen from these sort of streaming platforms and during lockdown?
I think I've enjoyed many live lounge room performances and things like that because I miss live music so much. What people need to do is we need to actually coordinate the music industry a little bit better. We've talked about it with St Kilda Live Music and with you and Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And having, these a one place stop shop where you can go, okay, I'm going to go to this gig tonight. And you have to, you don't necessarily subscribe, but you donate a certain amount of money just to have, new territory.
Yeah, it's uncharted waters, isn't it?
I think like if you can donate anything to a local band, be it via merchandise or if they start taking money for live stream. But so many musicians have been great in that they understand the value of the venues because if we don't have venues to reopen, the musicians have nowhere to play. So I've got, there's a few musicians out there who are dedicating their local streams directly to venues and sound engineers and things like that. So, we're all just trying to work together.
Yeah. That's it. So with these streaming platforms and, there's all sorts of different programs coming out to support the venues and the musos and the techies, do you think that'll change the way the music industry is after lockdown? How will that affect it, do you think?
I think there's going to be a compromise. It will be the same in many respects, but it will be different. I think people have shown nervousness about exiting after lockdown. They don't want to go through the second wave.
Yeah.
So we've really got to think outside the box, which is where, driving gigs came in, because I see that as something that's viable that will go beyond what I like to call the plague. COVID-19 is a pretty boring name. They could have picked a better one. But anyway, so what I want to do is start up a concept where you can go and see your favourite live, and I'm talking really great live bands on a stage with a movie. Sometimes there'll be a movie and I'll have a band playing along with the soundtrack.
That's awesome.
And during the day there's opportunities with there's many kids bands and plays. So people who are having to homeschool and have got their children at home all the time, once a week they can go out and see, Bunny Racket or something cool, and then, if one driving gig cinema could provide 100 jobs.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really concentrating on at the moment, and it's a not-for-profit thing. It's more about just regenerating our industry. No one involved in it is seeking great fortune. We just want to get things up and running, and we can see that we can spread, if we do this properly, we can spread this across. We'll start at St Kilda and we'll spread it across the state, and everyone, it'll be very egalitarian.
Egalitarian?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not the right person. So how does it work?
Okay. Zero contact. You'll be able to get, we'll be streaming through to your car stereo, so you'll tune in.
Yeah, sort of how you would normally at a drive-in cinema.
Really?
You haven't been to one?
Not since they had the speakers that you had to
Yeah, no, now
put
you
on
tune
your
in
wind.
through the FM
Yeah,
transmitters.
Last time I went, you had to put this clunky.
Yeah, I remember them all. It was terrible.
So zero contact. You'll get be able to book in of Oztix or whatever, Moshtix, whoever we choose to go with, and you'll turn up. You'll be given an allocated space, complete distancing. Local restaurants and venues will be able to benefit from it because they'll be able to open and provide cocktails and meals direct to the car door without contact.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, you'll be able to see, the Draft Dodgers or You and My, Beats, whatever, in your car with a steak and a martini.
Yep. We wanted to touch on community radio and how the lockdown has affected the way community radio promotes its local content and musos. I've got Karl Bianco, content manager for Southern FM on the line. How you going?
Good. How you going?
Good, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, it's a funny time that we find ourselves in right now, isn't it?
It is. It's definitely strange times. I wanted to ask you about how lockdown has affected community radio and how we support our local musicians.
Yeah, well, it's a really tough time for community radio because a lot of them promote local artists within the area and also throughout the country, and international artists as well too when they do visit our great country, when we're not affected by such things as COVID-19 like we are right now. The reality is there. But you find in our situation at Southern FM, just one of many community radio stations you'll find across the country, that we can no longer have, artists into the studio. We have to abide by the state regulations in Victoria, which means that when we have presenters presenting, if you have more than one presenter in the studio, you need to have one presenter in one studio, one presenter in another studio, which means we can't do things like our live Sunday sessions every Sunday where we encourage new Australian artists, local Australian artists, and the plenty of great musos out there to come in and play their new stuff and talk all about what they're up to and stuff like that. So I think, community radio is at a big disadvantage from that perspective because they don't get as much exposure as they usually would, the artists out there. So, yeah.
And how's
great.
that affected the amount of local content we can support at the station?
Well, I think the really great thing about having local artists come in is when they can share their story and talk about, if they grew up around the Bayside area, which is our target audience, Bayside and the surrounds in Melbourne, when, you might have inspiration of walking along the beach for a song and they can't really share that particular area that they were when they thought about that song, thought about lyrics, et cetera, expand. I think, hearing those stories of local people that are producing music that is heard on a local community radio station is really important. So without being able to have them come in, you can still do phone interviews, but I think for me, you really get a picture of, the thought process behind a song, behind a person's motivation for music and stuff by hearing their stories when they come into studio compared to, a phone call. Phone call doesn't have that sort of in-studio intimacy, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think that this lockdown has changed broadcasting? Has it had a permanent effect on broadcasting and our sort of local content?
I think it depends on the community radio station. I know for a fact, talking from Southern FM's perspective, there's a percentage of presenters that, at the risk of, they might not have the best of health, they're taking precautionary measures, they don't want to go out in public as much and whatnot. They're not able to present their program, and that's fine. Basically, as a community radio station, like every other community radio station, we basically put it out to the membership and the presenters to say, if you can't do your program or you don't want to do your program, that's fine. Just make sure you let the right people know and let us know when you're ready to come back, because obviously it's something that, a lot of us haven't really seen in our lifetime. So we're all just wondering how do we go about it? We've got to really understand everybody's perspective on it and respect the fact that some presenters don't want to do the program given the nature of what's going on around the world. So that's what we've had to just sort of prepare for and plan for. And it basically means that we replace the regular program a lot of the time with great Australian music, but, we can't have those artists coming on to talk about it. So
yeah, which is a shame.
Mm.
And sort of how do you envision community radio and the music industry after lockdown? How do you think it'll all look?
Geez, that's a really good question. I think there'll be, it will be very limited for the next 6 to 12 months at least, because it's going to take a lot of time to recover from this. And you also got to keep in mind that they haven't got a cure for this COVID-19 now. I suppose, unless you have it, you don't really know the severity of it. But from what I understand, it affects people in different ways. So we just got to be really, really cautious and really, really, approach it the best way possible. Have increased hygiene measures in place. The sanitizers, the wipes, the Glen 20 that's getting sprayed everywhere. Things like that. I think we're just going to keep that up. And listen to the government's advice on where we go from there. But you see it live music's really taken a hit because of it. But I suppose more virtual stuff is the way to go until we do get the OK to move back to having that, same room, same sort of area interaction.
Yeah. Do you see any positives for the music industry and community radio coming out of this situation?
I think during these times it just brings people closer together. That's probably the best thing to come out of it. It's an unfortunate thing to arise, but we see communities coming together and just wanting to support each other more so than other times. Like, it's not that community radio stations don't support local artists or anything like that, but I feel like, if you can do a little bit more as a community radio station, if you can do a little bit more as a musician to help another musician or whatnot, everybody's sort of coming together to help each other through this period more so than what they usually would. But I think if there's anything that we can apply to our normal lives, by normal lives I mean like when we get a sense of reality that's not how it is now back. I think it would be good if we just sort of keep that up, even if it's just at a lesser degree. But if somebody says, oh hey, can you ever listen to my new song, say yeah, cool, no worries, that sounds great, and provide that feedback, keep it going. The whole supporting each other.
There's going to be a stronger sense of support for
I think so. More of a community feel about it. I think that's one thing that we should sort of apply more.
Yeah, definitely.
I think just keep supporting it. That's all I can ask. Support community radio, support Australian music. That's the one big thing that needs to be supported.
Matt Ryan joins me now, creator of Munster Time zines. How has this lockdown affected you and the work you do?
Well, Terina, as I said, I do a fanzine Munster, which focuses on the Melbourne music scene, but also bands, international and local touring bands. And at the start of the year, I worked on issue 31, which I think was one of my better issues, and I finished it around mid-March. Had it all the printers ready to go, and then there's really nowhere to stock it in terms of pubs. Yeah,
because you usually supply it to, you go give the zine out to different local venues usually.
Yeah, places in St Kilda, the city, and Collingwood and Fitzroy, I drop them off. There's a few record shops that are open. They're just doing mail orders, or you can do an order and pop in and collect it. I've dropped off a few at Off the Hip and Strange World, where they're mailing it out to a few regulars. But in terms of the pubs, which is really where I focus on, there's nowhere to stock it really right now. So I've done a few mail orders to the regulars, but I usually do about 350 issues I print up. I've only got about 100 out so far. So it's a bit of a dent, but what can you do?
Yeah, it's challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in terms of, obviously you're heavily involved in the music scene in Melbourne with your zine, and also just as a personal interest, you've got a lot of friends who are involved, obviously playing bands or at venues and stuff. How are you seeing them being affected during this lockdown?
Well, I guess one thing is that we're all in this together. I hate to say that over and over again, but I guess it's true. Everyone's got some issue going on. Some people, like my great friend Fred Negro, who we were talking about before, he's like me, a creature of habit. He's got no gigs coming up, so he's got the Friday and Saturday at Johnny's. He hasn't got any gigs.
Yeah, because he's always out there doing something.
Yeah, he's always got something, which is a shame. There's a few people I know that own venues and. Smaller venues where, they're losing thousands of dollars a month, whereas a place like Crown Casino is losing millions, but, that's nothing compared to what the smaller venues are losing. And one particular guy I know who runs a venue, he's said his landlord is not showing his best human side during this time, and basically the rent is still the same, but obviously there's no one's coming into the venue, so the rent's the same, but there's no revenue to come in. So there's stuff like that. And Liam from the Old Bar, they've started a GoFundMe to try and basically pay the rent, but also pay the wages for the staff. He has a venue in Abbotsford where he's doing takeaway beer to keep it going, but obviously it's not really paying rent on both things and also the wages. So it's a struggle out there for everyone.
Yeah, it definitely is.
The John Curtin Hotel, they've got a thing where you can buy a pint. So they were saying if you put $10 in and you get a pint when it reopens, you can buy $100 and you get 10 pints when it comes back. And everyone there is either, I think some of the kitchen staff have been moved to kitchens and eateries that are open, so they've got jobs, and the bar staff, the permanent bar staff, are on job seeker and keeper, which is great. So the people are getting wages coming in, but as I said, in terms of the rent, that's a bit of an unknown right now. So
yeah, it's really holding that space for when we are off lockdown, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think some places they refund the liquor license for the year, which is great, but as I said, it's only a small dent. Doesn't cover everything.
Yeah,
but it is something. So
once lockdown is removed, how do you think it'll all look in terms of, we've got a lot of things happening online at the moment. There's the risk of losing venues. What's your opinion on how this is all going to look once lockdown is removed? You mentioned obviously there'll be a lot of events happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any international acts this year. I think we have to wait till next year. I know that Billy Bragg's, a friend of mine actually said he booked a Japanese band for September, and it could happen, but I think it's a bit up in the air. I wouldn't bank on that right now.
Yeah.
I think, before lockdown happened, places around the traps were very quiet. I think that even though people were allowed to go out, they were just staying away. So, and I think we don't know what's going to happen. I think someone said the virus may be around for 2 years, so there could be people that just stay away. Whereas I think a lot of people are itching to go out, and I think maybe because with all this live entertainment streaming, people might think, we never really went to gigs, we might go out to gigs then, and people need entertainment this time, so hopefully it'll pick up as it was before it happened. So
yeah.
If anything, hopefully even better. So
hopefully. So I wanted to touch on some of the things happening at the moment that to keep live music going during this lockdown. Lauren Scherson and Suzi Q are working on drive-in gigs. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I loved going to the drive-in as a kid. It was a great way to watch cinema as a kid. And, like I said, people need entertainment these days. And I've seen a few of the gigs online, whether it be as Stage It or on Facebook. And it's great, but, there's just something missing. The quality is good, the sound's good, but there's just something missing about, no audience and, just the interaction, live being there with things. So I think that's the drive-in, it's a wonderful idea. It's a way you can see music, but also be in a safe environment, and also a pretty unique experience that hopefully will kick on. Yeah,
I think it's a brilliant idea. And also Lauren and Suzi are working on a lot of the proceeds will go to supporting the artists during this time, and sound engineers, and hopefully I imagine there's going to be some sort of percentage for venues as well, try and keep them alive, the ones that are truly struggling at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you think of all the venues. I mean, there's obviously the owners, then there's the bookers, and then there's just the people that, the kitchen staff and the bar staff. So it's affected a lot of people. For every venue, there's probably at least 20 people that are affected by this. Yeah, there's a lot of, I think when patrons go out to venues and stuff, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that we don't think about when we're just going out to see a music gig that are struggling right now. So I think driving gigs is brilliant at the moment. I think they've both got a few people interested, talking about Tim Rogers, Paul Kelly. Oh, excellent.
Yeah. And there's also, they want to introduce that some of the local restaurants can deliver food straight to your car as well.
Really well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I thought that was a really good idea. That also supports some of the local restaurants as well.
Yeah, it helps everyone.
So the music landscape has really changed during this time.
Yeah, a lot of things. I mean, I guess we're talking about these gigs that you can buy on your phone and also streamed on the internet. And also Bandcamp, they recently uploaded the fees, and so basically, all the money went to the artists as opposed to Bandcamp taking a hit, which is all Bandcamp's thing, which is great.
Yeah.
Spotify's obviously been a big game changer in the last couple of years, and I don't know how that works, but I think that they're saying that the artist gets a very small royalties off that. I think one of my mates says if he gets 100 downloads, he might make $1 or something.
Yeah.
That's between 4 people,
Yeah, it's not paying the bills.
No.
And we also touched on in the last episode as well, with touring being one of the major ways currently, at least before lockdown, people were making their money as artists. And obviously with lockdown now, we've got all these new platforms. It's all changing. It's interesting to see how it's all going to come together, sort of how the music industry is going to look.
There's nowhere to go see gigs, so it's a great way to new initiatives to get the gigs out there. So there's Stage It, where basically you actually pay money to the artist directly. It's just a $5 American to get in the door, and you can pay as much as you want. So it's just great ways that, and on Facebook I've seen plenty of people put up their own gigs, even just one song at a time. So it's just been great that people are thinking, well, we can't perform live, so how are we going to get the music out there, and how are we going to entertain people?
And there's Delivered Live as well, which is a great one.
Yeah, and I saw Tim Rogers a couple of weeks ago, and with that a percentage of the fee goes to a venue or someone behind the scenes.
Yeah, so it supports the like we mentioned before, the people that are behind the scenes that we don't often think about but are definitely struggling at the moment.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
And when this is when lockdown is off, do you think that this will still be an outlet that musicians and, production staff will be using? Like, how do you think this whole digital world will carry on after lockdown?
Yeah, definitely carry on. I think that's, it's just a way to get your name out there. And also, like Dave Graney's done a few. He did one on a Thursday night, and then he did one the next day on a Friday morning, which is aimed for people in America who couldn't see the Thursday night one our time, so it was more convenient time for them the next day. So it's a great way people, it's a great way you can get it. You don't have to be in the pub. You can just get it out there to a whole new audience and also get a bit of money as well. So I think it'll definitely stick around.
With this massive social media platform for musicians at the moment, how do you think that's going to affect venues once everything does open up? Do you think it'll be a positive or a negative sort of?
Well, I think it'll be a positive in terms of getting people's music out there, and also, just Tim Rogers has been doing I think he's up to maybe about 4 or 5 songs where he'll do like a song a day. So plenty of people are doing. Jack Howard's doing as well with his bathrobe collection, and he's actually made some really beautiful videos just in his house. So it's amazing what you can do with just a phone. So
yeah, it definitely is, and like a lot of this stuff is coming through Facebook and Instagram. You can jump on, follow your favorite artist, and a majority of them are doing stuff from big names, Jimmy Barnes, to sort of your local bands that you get into. You can jump on and just follow them, and they're usually putting up something every, once a week at least, I've noticed.
Yeah, my mate Turkey Neck Bob from Queensland's doing a country song every day, which I'm enjoying. So
I've seen a lot of themed ones as well. I know the Tiger King's a big theme at the moment. I saw one of the local bands that I follow and I've had on my radio show before. They did a couple of sets of Tiger King themed sort of. They were just fun little sort of skitty songs. But I think that's fun, and it engages with the audience for sure.
Yeah, and a mate of mine, Craig Lee Smith, he's a regular at the Balaclava open mic and a few other open mics. So he's been doing a Friday night set of just the old open mic, just 3 songs and that's it. So he's done a few classics, but he's also written a few new songs as well, and he plays guitar and accordion. He swaps between that. So that's been great. It's
an interesting combo.
So it's like we can't do open mic, but he brings the gig to us. So it's always a Friday night, so it's always a highlight of the week. Looking forward to that. Like I said, someone overseas wants to see, say, something live from Mimo. There might be someone in America that think, oh, we could watch that, But I don't think, venues certainly aren't going to shut because of this. If anything, it could be a positive, so the venues can stay open, but also they can stream live and make some extra revenue for the artist and the venue by broadcasting live,
Yeah, and I think it's also, right now with the access to artists, just streaming live, probably creating a massive audience, people that didn't know about them prior to that. So I wonder if that'll have a demand on venues and events once this is over. Like I've been saying, people just put up the odd one song, and one song 3 minutes of your life. You might click on it, you might
just so, okay, what's next? Whereas you might think, oh, that's good, and you want to go down that rabbit hole and find more of that artist, you know?
And then you share it, and then their friends share it,
exactly,
and suddenly you've got a whole nother, another group of people.
Definitely.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers. Thanks, Sam.
That's all we have this week. If you want to get in contact with us, send us an email at ideas@studioemedia.com.au. Thanks for watching. See you next time.